I'm Jorge. I graduated at the KDG here almost 5 years ago. Not on this campus, but in Hoboken. And then I started, so I have to get my clicker, working for Cozmos. I started actually Android development, but then I decided I liked iOS a little bit more. And currently, I'm not gonna start it here. But currently I'm placed at the VRT, where I'm working on different iOS apps. The next half hour I'm gonna talk about app extensions. With an app extension in iOS, it's possible to share certain functionality or content with the system, iOS, or other third-party apps. And Xcode gives you the possibility to use 10 different extensions, plus on the left side watchOS, which makes 11. If you compare that to 2 years ago with iOS 7, I believe it was 0. So that gives us, you might think that Apple is opening up the system a little bit more for us developers, which is good. I'm not gonna talk about every extension, but just these three: a Today extension, Share extension, and a watch app. First, the Today extension. What is a Today extension? Well, it's this screen. The user can access this screen from any point in iOS by swiping from the left to the bottom, and he can choose which extensions he would like to see, or in what order. Now I have a question for you guys. Who here uses an iPhone? Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 40 people. And who here uses a Today extension daily? So that's half, I think, yeah. Okay. Later on, I'm gonna ask the same question about Apple Watch, so I'm curious about that. So, how do you make that? Well, you go to Xcode, File, New Target, and you choose Today extension. And Xcode gives you a storyboard, which is used to display the UI, and a view controller. This is a screenshot from the Today extension you just saw, which is used to turn on or off Philips Hue lights in your house. The view controller is a basic view controller. You can implement the same methods you are used to override: view did appear, view did load, and so on and so on. The only difference here is you have to implement the NC widget providing protocol. It has one required method you have to use, and that is widget perform update with completion handler. What does that? Well, iOS can decide to update its extensions when it wants, and it's going to do that by calling that method. When that method is called, you're going to have to get new data for with a URL, process the data, and redraw your extension. When that is done, you're going to have to call the completion handler. When the completion handler is called, iOS is going to make a snapshot from your extension and save that for when you do the animation. So when you swipe from top to bottom, you're going to see that snapshot. When the animation is done, it goes into the view will appear and view did load. All right, so that is basically what you have to know when you are building a Today extension. If you look at the app and the extension, they look quite the same. So you might think that sharing code is a good idea. How do you do that? This is the situation we have. We have an app, and we have an extension, and we have a class. We want to share that class with the app and the extension. How are you going to do that? You're going to make a framework. You add the class to the framework, and you're going to embed that framework to the app and the extension. And now you have successful shared a class to two different targets. If you look back, not only functionality is the same, but also data. How are you going to share data across different targets? You have three possibilities. The first one is NS user defaults. The second one, shared containers. And the third one, keychain items. With NS user defaults, you can share, oh, wrong slide. You can share primary objects. If you want to share the NS user defaults, you're going to have to go to Xcode, go to the capabilities tab, and put app groups on and give an identifier. Most of the time, it's the app identifier plus group as prefix. Next, you can make a custom NS user default suite with the group identifier. Any target that is going to call that suite with the same identifier in the same app group has access to the same dataset. So if a host app, your app, is setting a string to it, your extension can read it. And that way we can share, preferences, primary objects, stuff like that. The second one, shared containers. You can put anything in a shared container. The first one that I'm going to talk about is model data. Your core data store can be put in a shared container, so your targets, your Today extension, and your app has access to the same core data store. That's really, really good. Documents, plist files can go in a shared container, and media, images, movies, audio, you can put basically anything in a shared container. I'm gonna talk about model data a little bit more. This is actually, it's a lot of code, sorry. But this is the code you see when you make a new project and you add core data. And I'm not that tall, but on the top is going to make a URL to a directory in the application support directory that is not shared. It's going to put the core data store in that directory. How can we make sure that the core data is put in a shared container? We see the top code, which is the URL to go to the application support directory, and in here we see the changed URL. Basically, what it does, it calls the default manager on file manager, and on that instance is going to go for container URL for security application group identifier. The group identifier is the same identifier you have in your app group. That directory is the shared container, and you can put your persistent store coordinator in that container. And that way your target and your host app, your Today extension and your host app have access to the same core data store. This is really, really, really handy. And that was the Today extension part. Next up, share extension. What is a share extension? This is an example of me wanting to share 3 images by pressing the top the left button, it displays a model view dialog with the extensions it qualifies to. I'm choosing Slack. I see on the right side my 3 images, and I can post some text. When I press cancel, the whole thing gets dismissed, and when I press post, the 3 images plus the text go to Slack. How do we make that? Well, same thing, Xcode, file, new target, share extension. One thing to note is that your app can only have one shared target. You get a view controller. This time it's not the UI view controller, but SL Compose service view controller. And you can override 3 methods. The first one is content valid. When you return false, the pause button on the right top side is grayed out. You know, most apps, they filter data if you write fuck or something in the share extension. Fuck. You maybe want to return false, so the user can't post that content. When the user can press on the pause button, you can get the content from the extension context, you know, images, video, text, whatever it wants to share. You're going to upload it to your servers, and immediately you must do the complete request returning items on the extension context to signal the host app that presents the shared extension to say I'm done sharing, and it dismisses the whole view. The third method, configuration items. You can add some extra views on the bottom sheet. In here I add a view with title mobile and value add to mobile. When the user presses that view, it goes to a new view controller. This time it is a normal UI view controller. I have an image, a video for that. When I press the share button on the bottom, it's going to display the same sheet. It's going to choose share proof of concept, and I see mobile and add to mobile. When I press it, it goes to a new view controller. So you can put anything in that view controller. Most of the time it is used to add some extra settings to your share extensions. For example, in Slack you can choose the channel. Some extra settings, a placeholder. When there is no text, you can put some placeholder text. The characters remaining on the bottom side, you can add 2. When your it's possible that your app extension can't handle video, but it can handle images. You can specify that in the info.plist by, in this case, it says I can support 10 images, 1 movie, and 1 URL. That was the share extension. Now, how can I, as a host app, a normal app, be a good host to different share extensions? How can I use as many share extensions as possible? I have a video of an app that I used when I went snowboarding. I tracked the distance and my speed, and I want to share that with an app. So it takes the content in whatever format, and it puts it in the Notes app. For some reason, the buttons on the left and the right are grayed out. I think it's a bug. So how do we do that? Well, you want to handle as much extensions as possible. That means extensions that handle only texts, only PDFs, or only HTML. You have to present the correct format to the correct extension. How do we do that? Well, you make an instance of NSItem provider, and you register different types. For example, in here I use plain text and PDF. I give that instance to a UI activity view controller, and I present it. When the user chooses an extension that can handle only PDFs, it's going in this block here, and that's your cue to take the content you have in whatever format it is and make a PDF of it. When that's done, the results you give to the completion handler, and the extension does the rest for you. And that is a way to handle as much as extensions as possible. So that's share extensions. Next up, the watch extension. When you go to Xcode and you add a new watchOS application, you can choose between a watchOS version 1 and 2. When you choose watchOS version 2, you can add a notification scene, a glance scene, and a complication. First, notification. When you receive a notification on your iPhone, it gets transferred to your Apple Watch, and that notification can be customized. This is an example of American Airlines that adds a button. When you press a button, you go to the app. A glance. When the user goes to the watch face, which is the screen that shows the hour, you can swipe from the bottom to the right, from the bottom to the top, and it shows the extensions. In here I have 8 extensions, and it's used for displaying small bits of information. For example, the weather, the battery percentage, how many kilometers I've walked, stuff like that. A complication, that is actually a small part on the view that you can use for your app, and you can display any information you would like. For example, in here it shows the temperature, I hope, my next meeting, and I think also the battery percentage. And last, the actual apps itself. Now, a question for you guys: who here uses a Apple Watch? 2, 4, 6, 8. Who here uses an Apple Watch app daily? Okay. Yeah, me neither. So, watchOS 1. How does watchOS 1 work? Your extension runs on the iPhone. So all the code that does the business logic runs on your iPhone, and it sends the views via a Bluetooth connection or possibly even Wi-Fi to the Apple Watch, which was a really compelling idea because you have a remote screen on your wrists, and all the hard stuff gets done on your on a good processor. The downside on it was that the connection between your iPhone and your Apple Watch was sometimes not so good. So it took a long time to load an Apple Watch. So they changed it. And they changed it by running the extension not anymore on the iPhone, but on the Apple Watch. When you make an Apple Watch app, you have access to different interface objects. This is the wrong slide, actually. You can choose, you can make your screens in an interface controller, which is, it's not a UI view controller, but you can compare it to it. Interface table, a label, a button, a slider, an image, and a picker. And those are the items you can use to make an Apple Watch app. It doesn't know UIKit, but it knows WatchKit, and in WatchKit are these elements. So you have an app. You make a Today extension. You share code with a framework. You share data in a share extension, and later on, you're gonna make an Apple Watch app. You can see that the views and the data is almost exactly the same. So you want to share code and data between the three targets. How do you do that? Well, this is the situation we had with the Today extension and an app, and we have to make room for a WatchKit app, and we add it. This is the case with watchOS 1. With watchOS 1, the extension was still running on your iPhone, so you can embed the same framework that you embedded in your Today extension in your Watch extension, and it works. But then came watchOS 2, and it doesn't run anymore on your iPhone, but it runs on your Apple Watch. So the link between the framework and the Watch extension, that doesn't work anymore. So that's gone. So how can we share codes between the three different targets? Well, we're gonna make a new framework that compiles for WatchKit. And we're gonna add the model, assuming it has no reference to UIKit, in that framework. Voila, we have shared one class to two different extensions running on two different devices. And that's pretty impressive. Next up, sharing data. In watchOS 1, it was the same as a Today extension. And as user defaults, containers, or keychain items, they all worked. But in watchOS 2, the code wasn't running anymore on your iPhone, but on the Apple Watch. So Apple had to make something different, and they made a watch connectivity framework. It uses two methods to transfer data back and forth. First one is background transfer, and the second one is interactive messaging. With background transfer, we have an app, and we have a Today extension, and we have an Apple Watch, and we want to share data from the app to the extension. How do we do that? Well, Apple says to you, now it's the time to send data from the iPhone to the Apple Watch. You're gonna send it, and when the user opens the app, it activates it. The data that was last sent from the iPhone to the Watch extension is presented to the Apple Watch, like this. And that way it can build its views. The second one, interactive messaging, that is used to send live data back and forth between two active devices. The first one is going to send data, and the Apple Watch gets it immediately and can display it on its views. And vice versa also. This is the case when two devices are active, but there is a situation where your Apple Watch is active but your iPhone isn't. So what happens then? Well, the data is still sent from the Apple Watch to the iPhone, but it spawns a background process. And there you can handle the data you just received. And that is the end of the watch extension and the end of the presentation. Thank you.